Hi guys, it's Sam for Digital Meat again, and in this tutorial I'm going to be going over Projection Man, mainly because a few people in the comments on YouTube have asked me to cover it, so I thought I would. First thing to note, okay, if you have a look at my site at a previous tutorial I did about projection mapping, there are similarities. Okay, let's have a look at the result of the shot we got last time. So as you can see, we've got a static shot, and we've got 3D elements mixed with what is essentially a photo projected onto geometry that I built. And that's fine. But you'll notice the shot is static. So say I wanted to zoom into, say, this table or come around this side of it. Obviously, this photo shot has no information about what's behind this table. So you're going to get the actual projection of the table projected onto the floor behind it, and this is where Projection Man comes in. I mean, it's really useful for that sort of matte painting, all that kind of thing. So let's just jump into it because I think that'll explain it a lot better. So like this tutorial, we're going to have to calibrate a camera first, so let's get into it. First things first, I'm going to go to my render settings and presets, film and video, and I'm going to choose HDTV 24 frames a second, 1080. Okay, so you can see my width and height is 1920 by 1080. Okay, so that's fine. Let's have a look at the photo I'm using. Okay, so this is the photo I'm going to use, mainly because it's a simple scene, just so I can show you how Projection Man works without taking too much time, really. Luckily, my phone, well, not even luckily, my phone takes photos in a 16:9 aspect ratio. I should imagine most phones do, but if you're using a picture from the web or anything like that, I suggest that you'd alter the size of the canvas to make it 16:9, and then you can fill in the sort of empty space at the edges or whatever it is. Anyway, in this case, it's not necessary, and also, it's the aspect ratio that matters. Even though my render settings are 1920 by 1080, I think the actual photo res is, yeah, here we go. So the dimensions are 5344 by 3008. But it doesn't matter because the ratio of that photo is still 16:9. So that's great. Okay, let's get on with it. So first of all, we need to create a camera. Right click on the camera, Cinema 4D tags, camera calibrator, and this is something that I did cover in the tutorial before, but I'll go over it again. So let's go to the image tab first. We need to load our image in this field here, so let's just click on this, select our background image. That's loaded in. The image scale is 100%. It's set to custom for some reason, but 16:9, yeah, no changes were made there, so that's fine. Our image is at 100% and it's the 16:9 ratio. Perfect. So we can move on to the calibrate tab now. It needs to know what the X, Y, and Z axes are. From that, it can work out the rest of the data, like the camera's position and its focal length and all the rest of it. So first thing we need to do is add line. Now, I don't know if you can see that there, but I've got a line on my screen and there's a point either end, and as you can see, when I grab a point, it zooms in, so it's kind of like a magnified version of where the point actually is, so you can be more accurate. So I need to define the axes. I'm going to make sure that this direction, so going back into the scene, is Z, because it's called Z depth for a reason. This way is going to be X, and in Cinema 4D, Y is always up, as it should be. So I'm going to put this point on the edge of the table here, on this line, wherever it's gone. Oh, there we are. So I'm just going to whack that there. And then the other end, I'm going to whack right up here on the edge of the table. Just get a bit more accurate with that. Yeah, there we go. So I'm going to define this line as the Z direction, and to do that you can shift click the line and it will change colour. So red is X, we don't want that. Green, that's Y, which is up, we don't want that. So we want the next one, which is blue. Okay, As you can see down here, nothing's changed. It still says unsolved, insufficient lines even. So we need to add another line. Let's do some X lines. So I'm going to put the point on here and the other end on the same line, which is about there. I'm going to change that to red. Then I'm going to add another line, make some more X lines here. You notice that I'm using the lines on the table. Now these might not necessarily be straight for all I know, but it's the indicators that I've got in this photo, so that's what I'm going to use. It should give us a pretty accurate solve, I hope. So we can see it's gone yellow. It says solved, but I'm going to keep going. See if we can get a better solve out of it. So right on the line there, and then up here on the line as well. Change that to red. Here we go, solved. Small margin of error at the bottom there. I might even add another one in just to make sure. See if we can bring that sort of error threshold down. So on the line there, and then up here on the line again. Change it to red. The error's actually gone up there, but maybe I'll remove that then. Maybe that didn't actually help us. Okay. Let's get some more Z lines going in. Now, again, I haven't got anything that matches that edge apart from these lines, so I'm going to be using these. Okay, so, and it's actually quite a small distance as well, so hopefully with a wing and a prayer. Okay, let's change that to blue. Okay, now we can see we've got more solved stuff going on now. I'm going to create another line. I just want this to be as accurate as I can make it, so let's dump that there. Let's dump another one here. Come on. Okay. Okay. Let's get another one going on this line here. I actually don't know how well this is going to be. These lines are going to probably look pretty faint to you guys on the old recording there, but hopefully they'll come through. Okay, so we've got some solves. The Y's been indirectly solved, and that'll be from the relationship between the X and Z. But I'm gonna make some vertical lines anyway. So the edge of this sort of canister could be quite good. So there, we know this is up along the edge of this. So let's try that. Okay, let's make another line. We also know the edge of this box is sort of the Y direction as well, so hopefully that'll help us out. So go along here. It's kind of a rough guess really, because the edge of this box is pretty messed up. Let's give that a go. Oh, we didn't like that. Okay. Let's try the edge of this then. So it will be somewhere around there and somewhere around there. Does that help? Actually didn't like that. I might leave the Y indirectly solved then. Maybe this edge will help. It's a little bit more uniform. So if I pick there and then go to about here, That may help. Just add those lines anyway and see if it comes up with a solution. Okay, so that'll do. And then right on the corner there, add another line and do the same thing this side of the canister maybe. Come on, there we go. That actually might be a better way to do it, that. Yeah, I might get rid of these two because they're not very accurate. It doesn't like that either. Okay, so let's add a pin to the scene. Now, where is it? What's this? What is that? Okay, here we go. So this is basically saying, where is world 0? So I think the bottom of this can be world 0. And I think this, let's just make this right at the bottom there and get the top of it right at the top as well. And I'm going to estimate, just so we can get a better feel for the scene and it can solve the camera a little bit better. I'm going to say the known length of Y is, I think this is about 20 centimeters tall, something like that. I might actually get rid of this as well because it doesn't seem to be helping. Where's our pin gone? There it is. Put it to the bottom of that. Okay, so we got everything solved now. So this is world 0. And we've figured out what X, Y, and Z is, I think. Let's have a look. Okay. Okay, so you'll notice that when we click off the camera, our image disappears and everything else, and that's because we haven't got the camera calibration tag selected. So we can click that tag, and at the bottom here we've got Create Background. So I'm just going to click that, and now when I click off, you've got a view of the background, and the grid matches up pretty well. So what do we need to do now? We need to project this photo onto geometry. First thing I'm going to do is go to the background image, go to the editor tab, and say that it's at least 2K. Make it a little bit sharper. And also I'm going to duplicate my camera as well. So duplicate this camera and rename it projection camera. So this is the camera we're going to be projecting the image out of onto geometry. This one is the calibration camera, so I'm just going to rename that calibration camera. Okay. We can get rid of the calibration tag on our projection camera because we don't need that. And I'm also going to put a protection tag on both of these cameras. So we select them both, right click, Cinema 4D tags, protection. It just means that if I select one of these cameras and try to move it, I can't, it's protected. So we can't move them out of place. Okay, so with the projection camera selected and in its view, I'm gonna create some geometry. Now the can, obviously that's going to be a cylinder, so let's create a cylinder. That's big. Bring its radius down, bring its height down. Okay, so let's make its height 20. Let's make its radius a bit smaller. And we want to make sure it's actually sat on the ground plane as well. So if I just turn off my background for a minute and come out the projection camera, you can see that it's not actually on the ground there. So I'm going to go back into my camera and unhide the background. Middle click my mouse button, and it'll come into all these different views. So if we go into the right view, right, so what's the height of our cylinder? It is 20 centimeters. So in the coordinates, I need to move it up 10 because the axis point is halfway, is in the center of the object. So that should move it up to the ground plane. Now I know it's level. So let's go back to this view. Remember from tutorials before, if you press the N key, it brings up a list of sort of view options. So NG gives you a wireframe, NB gives you a ground shading with lines, and I think NA is just ground shading, no lines. So we can flick between those to make life easier. So I'm just going to move that. Now remember, we don't want to move this in the Y direction by accident. In fact, if we come up to the top here, we can turn off Y now that it's sat on the ground plane. And so I can move it around any direction but the Y. I can't. Oh, actually I can lift it up. Why is that? Oh, it's probably because I use the arm of it, maybe. Okay, so yeah, that's sat on the ground plane. So I'm just going to try and line it up with this can as best I can. So that's about the right place, and I'm just going to move it down so the edge meets. Now I think it probably needs to be a little bit wider and shoved this way slightly. You can kind of see the edge of something going on there, and you can kind of see that edge there. So if I just put it down here like so, and then make the radius a little bit bigger, it should cover us. It's something that can always be adjusted later, so that's good. Okay, I'm just going to turn off the grid so we get a cleaner view. Okay, so NA. Yeah, we can see a bit of the can sort of bleeding over the edge there. So that's worked quite well. I think maybe, let's go back into this view. I think maybe we need to be slightly wider, maybe. Only by a touch though. Okay, let's extend the radius slightly. We don't need to be absolutely painfully exact, but it helps. That'll do. I'm just going to make it editable now, and then for some reason cylinders caps in Cinema 4Ds aren't welded, so I'm going to go into point mode, Control A to select all, right click anywhere in the scene and go down to optimize, and that'll weld the caps. And then I'm going to go into poly mode in my selection tool, select the cap, and then I'm going to drag up and down to make it match the rim of that. Okay, so you know, it's a bit rough and ready, but that's our can shape. Right, the next thing, cube. It is absolutely massive, so let's make this 20 by 20, move it into the scene and make sure it's on the floor again. So if we middle mouse button and go into the side view here, we can see that again we've got to go into coordinates and move it up by 10 centimeters. Now it's sat on the floor. Go back into this scene again, so it's actually sat on the floor now. Okay, so let's line it up with this box. I'm just going to move it down here, go into this view again, and we want this bottom edge to line up with this sort of bottom edge there. So I'm going to scooch it round so it's about where we want it. Move it backwards in the scene until we've kind of got a match. I think that needs adjusting again. Yeah, something like that. Let's scale it. Oh no, we can't do that because it's a primitive. Okay, so let's make this editable. Now we can select the top of the box and bring it down so it meets this edge here. Okay, seems good enough to me. Let's go into point mode. If we hold down on the live selection tool and pick rectangle selection, make sure we've got only select visible elements off and tolerance selection on, and we can just select these points on the side here and drag them out until we've got something that kind of matches. I think there's a little bit of a skew on it, but that's okay. We can pull this one out as well. Can't see what's going on there. Yeah, I think the whole thing needs to be rotated slightly. So I'm going to select all the points and just rotate them, just so they line up a little bit nicer. I think that'll probably do it. Just make sure we're covered on this edge. Yep. Make sure we're covered on this edge. Although I'm sure you can see this box isn't a perfect box. We've got a bit of a gap here, but I can actually get rid of that by dragging this back in. And maybe forward slightly as well. Remember, this doesn't have to be completely perfect. We're just trying to create the illusion. So that'll do us for that. Then these points at the back here, I'm going to move back so that line meets the last bit of the box there, and that should do us for the box. You can see that we've got a little bit of the box showing through there, so let's just sort that out by grabbing these points, going back into this view and dragging these out. There we go. So we've got coverage there. That's fine. Let's make another cube. We should name these actually. Let's name the cylinder can. Let's name the cube box, and this what are they? Placemats, tiles. Yeah, tiles. Okay. So the size, we'll make it 20 by 20 again. To get it sitting on the ground plane, we know we need to move it up by 10. So now it's sat on the ground plane. Okay. Actually is not too bad. We just need to scooch it slightly around so it's got a general, fits generally okay. I can't get to my Z, well actually I can there, but there's something else you can do. If you select the object and go into the coordinates, I know I want to move it on the Z, so I can actually use that value there to scooch it along. There you go, I can actually get to it now. Okay, so we want to make this editable. I'm just going to go back into the live selection tool, polygon mode, select the top, bring the top down so it meets that edge. Let's go into the other view again just to make sure everything's looking okay. I think the whole thing might need to be rotated just a tad more because it's not quite. There we go, that'll probably do it. Yeah, hopefully that'll do it. Select the top again. Make sure that line matches up there. I'm going to go into point mode, my rectangle selection, and drag these out to the edge. Okay. I think we got it. It's a bit hard to see, isn't it there? Same thing with this end. Drag it out. Okay, then grab these, move them back. As you can see, we've got a slight misalignment there, but that's not too bad. What we can do is, I'm just going to come out of this view so I can grab these 2 points at the end there, go back into my projection view, and I'm just going to shift these out slightly. Again, it's not perfect, but it'll work. I'm going to grab these 2 at the top there and just make sure that they're giving us all the coverage we need. And I think that'll do as nicely. Yep, that'll do. So we can go back into the other view now, and we can see that everything's matching up with our scene. Okay, now what we need to do is actually project this image onto our 3D objects. So this is where Projection Man comes in. Oh, actually, before we do that, I actually need to create the tabletop as well. Beg your pardon. So let's. I've just created a plane. It's already at world 0, so we're laughing there. Let's make this 20 by 20, and then I can see where the hell we are. There we go. Okay. So I'm just gonna get the selection, the scale tool, scale it up. Don't worry, it will scale on world 0. So we're covered. Let's move that up. Here, scale tool again, and as you can see, we're just going to scale it up until it matches the edge of this. In fact, we need to cover this little bit up here, so I'm going to scooch it across slightly, and then again scale it up until we got a. I just want to make sure that we're not going to get a gap in this corner here, so I'm just going to move it along again. Let's move that up there. There we go. I think that does us nicely. Okay, so we've got the table created as well. Now, as you can see in the background, we've got it looks like a chair with a sort of hoodie hung over it or something. And for that, let me just name this plane table. For that, I'm just going to create, I'm not going to worry about trying to model the clothes and all the rest of it. I'm just going to put a plane there. So I'm going to copy this table plane, and I'm going to call this sort of chair and hoodie. And I'm going to orientate it on the positive X axis. Then I'm going to select it and just move it across. So just to give it a little bit of parallax, I don't want it butt up against the table. So I'm just going to move it a little bit further back from the tables, just so there's like a little bit of parallax between the two. We've got a gap up here as well, so I need to shift it along the Z. Boom, we're all covered. Okay, so this is what our scene looks like. Back into the projection camera. Okay, so that's the camera calibration and the modelling sorted out. So I think at this stage I'll probably break this tutorial up into parts. So this will be part 1, and in the next part we'll actually open up Projection Man and start assigning textures and all the rest of it. Okay guys, I'll see you next time. Bye!